Welcome back. You're watching The Full View. The question that we've been asking today as we commemorate June 16th, have organizations representing our youth actually done enough to address the issues affecting most of our youth? We have had a look at some of your views. Let's have a listen.
It needs to invest more in SMEs, helping the youth, and also government needs to look at many major companies and their unrealistic expectations. There's a lot of discrimination going on when you apply for a job. Either you're inexperienced or you're overqualified, and it's very frustrating for the youth. So I think those are the two issues. Invest more money into SMEs, because it's pointless having all these graduates but there are not enough jobs for all of us. So yeah, invest more money in SMEs and look at all the major companies, because they are discriminating against a lot.
Let's listen into, or rather let's have a look at some of the tweets that have come through on this matter. Given says no, everyone starts indicating increase in youth unemployment, but every year I discover at least 3 organizations aiming to solve youth unemployment. Maybe the youth are finding it difficult to reach the organization, or the organization is not being accessible. Right, so those are just some of the views that are coming in with regards to our discussion as we commemorate the 16th of June 1976. We have a look at where have they been and where are we now. So that also, in listening to one of the comments that has come through, that also comes into line with the discussion that we had earlier with regards to access. One of the viewers had sent in a voice note saying that possibly the access in getting those skills is hard, and sometimes you're even seen as overqualified, which then also brings me to the issue that we spoke of off air, that we've also seen come to the media forthright, and that is of bogus colleges and bogus qualifications. So when we are having a look, and earlier on you mentioned the lack of involvement from the private sector. So when we have a look at some of these issues, and we have a look at the challenges that possibly the private sector would be having in hiring young, unexperienced graduates, is this not also something to take into account, that there are those qualifications where, you know, people do say that they have qualifications, and when they do get into the working place, they are simply not ready. They are simply not qualified. Yes, you have a finance degree. Yes, you have an accountancy degree, but you can't balance the books. You can't do the basics.
Okay. It again go back to the question of curriculum content. That you have an accounting degree, but you cannot balance the book, as you say, as you put it. But let me come to the question of bogus colleges, bogus qualification, or rather say qualifications that in the current generation, they are no longer relevant. You see, there are two kinds, as far as I'm concerned, kinds of bogus colleges. You would have a college that is accredited to offer a business-related qualification, but you'd find that particular college is also offering engineering while it's not accredited. So those are the bogus colleges. There are also bogus colleges that are generally bogus. They are not accredited to offer even a single qualification or a single program. So those are the bogus colleges that which, as a student movement, we had a campaign, and we're still continuing with our campaign to go across the country into making sure that we're exposing those particular bogus colleges, and we're roping in the Department of Higher Education into making sure that they are assisting us with all the accredited institutions of higher learning, in particular these bogus colleges. So it's a question of concern into our society, and our people are desperate to get education, and they would end up falling into a trap of enrolling to these bogus colleges, doing these engineerings that are not accredited, and when they have graduated to that bogus college, they would go and look for work, and it will then be identified that no, this particular qualification is bogus, and even the college that has offered this particular qualification is not accredited, is not a registered college to offer this particular qualification. So those are the things that we are running a campaign around them into making sure that we are assisting our people. We know our people, they are desperate, they want education, and that education they want, they end up falling into wrong hands, because remember, the number of grade 12 that is coming out of basic education to higher education, the space created into higher education, both TVET and universities, is far less to the number of grade 12 learners that are coming out of basic education. That's why you would have people who, some of them, they would go and stay in their communities. Some of them, they would end up registering into these bogus colleges. So we are having that particular, and we are calling an assistance by the society to assist us in that particular regard.
I'm going to bring Kateko into conversation. You were disagreeing somewhat with what Luyanda was saying.
Yes, I think as a student leader, it's a bit reckless to say there are qualifications that are not that are bogus, that are not wanted in the job market. Do you understand? You can't say, because when you look at the what we call the makeup of most of these bogus colleges, they offer skills that are needed in the job market right now, skills that are in demand. Do you understand? And one of the things that we must focus on, it's not because it's not that it's not about bogus colleges, it's about the inefficiency of our government to track them down. What is our intelligence doing? Why do we have an entire department focused on intelligence but cannot even single out a few bogus colleges in Johannesburg? In fact, it is us as student leaders who go to them and tell them that there's an existence of a bogus college there, and you find that you discover that 5 years into its existence, but we have an intelligence group. It means that even our government's prioritization is flawed. They don't prioritize young people. They don't prioritize education. If they prioritized education, they would have wanted the best for everyone. They would have wanted the best for even those who are going into colleges. Do you understand?
Does the onus then also, as young people, do we not also need to take some sort of onus in being able to research? Those are some of the qualifications and the skills that we are taught in schools to research qualifications, to research institutions. We're constantly being reminded on social media platforms and on campuses about bogus institutions, about qualifications. And you mentioned that, yes, people are desperate, but then you still find students, young people, even moving away from bogus institutions into falling victims to scams. Recently, we also saw in the media with regards to some young people falling victim in thinking that they're going to get a job. So you go for an interview at a recruitment agency, and then you're told by the recruitment manager that you need to pay a certain amount of fee to be able to get this job or to get a booking in this job. Those are real life factors also that students need to take into account.
Yeah, there is a question that I think it would be wrong if we left here without addressing. I agree with leadership that the government need to play a role. But I'm not government. We are not government. I'm leading a student movement, and I'm saying to you, we have programs to make sure that we are dealing and we are actually campaigning for making sure that we are exposing these particular bogus colleges. For example, one day if we are to promote a bogus college, you are going to create a certificate yourself and say, I have a BSc in engineering, and you are going to go and look for work, and you have never started it. And we don't know these bogus colleges, whether they are credible into actually making sure that they are teaching people to be able to be good engineers. That's why we are saying they are bogus and they need to be dealt with. We can't afford as a country to have these bogus colleges because we don't know where are they accredited. We don't know what is it that they are teaching. That's why we need to deal with them. So I don't believe that it's reckless to say they are bogus colleges with bogus qualification. I believe and I stand firm to that particular view that these particular colleges, they must be dealt with, and anyone who is actually milking money to poor people who are desperate to get education and enroll them to these particular bogus colleges. Those people, they must be dealt with by our government.
All right,
but
Leander, just to interject you there.
Okay.
So we've spoken about this issue in depth. Earlier on, you had also mentioned one of the issues with regards to movements such as yourself within financial institutions, making information aware to government and facilitating issues on the ground that's happening that are affecting students to government. Let's now talk about the role that youth organizations, youth student movements actually have between financial institutions and actually taking the on the ground information, the real life information, making that available to government. And let's have a look at the synchronization that we've actually seen of government and youth coming together. In our current sixth administration, we have a former Wits SRC actually becoming a member of parliament. You have Nompendulo, we also have Naledi Chewa also making inroads, being, you know, some of the youngest MPs, if not the youngest MPs that South Africa has ever had. So let's talk about the role of leadership that the youth is starting to have in terms of gaining momentum, albeit very small.
Okay.
Firstly, Shante, let me firstly start by congratulating those who are in parliament.
Of course.
And also I would like to caution most of our student leaders. Student leadership is not a step ladder to national politics. Student leadership is about being on the ground with students, conscientizing the ground on what inequalities exist within their institutions. But at the same time, we also need people to advocate for us up there. That is why I'm congratulating them, because they are our mouthpiece now. We don't care whether she's from EFF, ANC, DA or what. As long as you are a young person, you must start speaking about youth politics. Youth organizations, I mean really, the role of youth organizations has deteriorated to certain...
How so? Because in 2019, in a sixth administration, we have young people in parliament, which we did not have last year.
We're talking about organizations. Youth organizations is what we call SASCO, EFF Student Command,
youth organizations, DASO. Youth movements, the voice of the youth.
Yes, but at the same time, they have deteriorated because most of them have lost their mandate. For example, there are some who are existing today as leaders of various student organizations. Luolo might know, Luanda might know. They are existing because simply of one thing. There is money, number one. And number two, this is step that into government through the ANC DASO.
Okay, let's not get political. I'm going to bring Leander into here in terms of the role of leadership that we currently have.
I'm not being political. Here I'm raising a concern that most young people that I engage with every day raise to me to say, but you say we must listen to SASCO speaking about curriculum transformation, but the same SASCO is supporting the ANC in whatever they do.
Okay, you've made your point.
Do you understand?
Fair enough,
Yeah.
Leander.
Yeah. You see, the support of SASCO into ANC, there is a reason for SASCO to support ANC, but I don't want to enter into that argument. I want to come straight to your question so that at least we can do you favor and assist my brother. We, in the sixth administration, we appreciate the fact that all political organizations, almost all, regardless of the political cap, they have actually started to realize that young people are needed into the administration of our country. Now, that directly talk to or responds to the question of whether the activism of young people in the country is felt or not. And the question is yes. Because the reality of the matter is that it was young people during Fees Must Fall who took upon themselves into making sure that they are demanding for free education across all political organizations. They made it to be felt by the government that as young people who are in need of education, like the youth of 1976. Youth of 1976 took it upon themselves into making sure that they are giving necessary pressure to the government of that particular time. Now, the question is, yes, there is activism. There is activism because we have people now, as you already said, we have people who, some of them, they are former members and deployees of SASCO. Nombendulo is a former deployee of PYA in Vets, was deployed by SASCO in that particular institution. Fasia, who is a member of the provincial legislature here in Gauteng, is also the former provincial treasurer of SASCO here in Gauteng, is a deployee of SASCO. If I must be selfish and talk about the South African Student Congress, I would name many leaders who are now leading in strategic position in governance, and they have been participating in the politics of our country. But we are not there now. We are about to talk about the fact that generally the youth activism, is it felt or not? And I'm saying it is felt. And there are a lot of things that we're going to do into making sure that it is felt. As I said to you, that we need to address the issue of unemployment. We need to address the issue of free education, because we don't have free education that we would have wanted as the student movement.
I'm going to bring you in here with regards to actually having representation in our sixth administration in Parliament. Do you feel that this is a step forward? Unfortunately now, a couple of years after you've already graduated, you're still trying to look for employment. But earlier on you mentioned that you are one of 7. Do you think that in some way this is a way forward for one of the 6 of your other siblings, that a couple of years from now they would not be in the same position that you're in, that they would have graduated, upon graduation they would have had an opportunity to actually have a job? Do you feel that youth representation now is heard?
Well, we can only hope for the best, but for now there's nothing tangible so far. So that's why I think the only thing is only time will tell.
Do you agree then with Nkateko that the youth organizations have deteriorated?
Yes, I do.
And I saw you were disagreeing with Luyanda earlier.
No. Luyanda fed straight into what my point was. To say they are concerned too much with being deployed. And it's not wrong to deploy the youth, right? Never get me wrong.
So do you feel okay, fine. Let me take this back. Do you then feel that the youth representation that we have now and the youth activism that we have now is not in the interests of the youth?
You see,
in terms of your statement, then saying that they're only looking at themselves in self-deployment.
The previous 5 administrations of South Africa deployed some youth from his organization, as he confirmed. What did they do for the youth? Nothing. But the current crop, and maybe this comes with the intellectualism that most of them acquired from Wits University. The current crop is the best of the best. And I don't see them disagreeing on issues of the youth. Do you understand? The current crop who's in Parliament. But the previous ones that this one is talking about, they did nothing, absolutely nothing.
In fact, about activism of today, I'm saying, yes, there's activism. That's why I'm saying the fact that we have many young people in Parliament, it direct answers the question of whether do we have activism currently or not. And yes, we have youth activism. That's why we have people in Parliament who are young. And he agrees that he has hope in them. So that is activism.
No.
They were active.
He's actually misquoting me.
They were active before they go. It did not just fall on the sky.
But he's not saying that they weren't active. He's saying that in their activism they were worried about self-deployment.
Yes.
That's not what he said.
Yeah, but he must come to the question whether there is activism or not. And relate his answer to the fact that he is saying there are people in Parliament in the 6th administration who he has hope in them.
All right, let's take this back.
I want him to answer to that.
No, let me answer him. I am a youth activist. I almost gave up my degree this year because I stood up to the University of the Witwatersrand and said, you are not going to exclude a student because they are owing you.
That's activism.
University is a public good, right? That is my activism, right? And that is the
As a
activism
young person.
that we see within institutions of higher learning. Within institutions of higher learning, yes, there is. But
Oh, there is.
outside,
Okay.
outside,
I am the deputy president of SASCO.
Ask him what they've done so far.
SASCO is existing
All right.
in institutions of higher
Ask
learning.
him what they've done so
This is
far.
not a job. No.
SASCO is existing in institutions of higher learning. He is saying he's an activist.
This is not a job interview, so I'm not going to ask anybody's qualifications or their skills.
No, we must be honest when we're answering to these questions and bring facts.
25 years into democracy, 43 years ago, we saw thousands of students protest, take to the streets, stand up against live ammunition, against police, for what they believed in, for what they wanted to fight for. A couple of years, we saw more or less the same. Perhaps it wasn't live ammunition, it was rubber bullets, it was rocks being thrown, broken glass, and tear gas. Going into June 16, 2020, let's just talk about what sort of South Africa we would want to see and what sort of youth we would want to envision going forward. I'm going to take closing statements from everyone. I'm going to start with Nkateko.
Okay. Thank you. Let me start.
Just very briefly.
It's very brief. Let me start by saying what would Tsietsi Mashinini and Steve Biko tell us today? Steve Biko will tell us that institutions of higher learning are still suffocating black people. Steve Biko will tell us that institutions of higher learning are still fundamentally unchanged. The fact that University of Venda is fundamentally different from the University of Witwatersrand still maintains the Bantustanism of apartheid. So Steve Biko will therefore tell us that as young people, the first thing that you must strive for, decolonize the curriculum. They call it transformation, I call it decolonization.
All right, your time's up. Dalukolo.
I would like to say that what I would like to see is all of the youth being included, not just as like we spoke about today, only about graduates. Remember, not a lot of them, like you mentioned, that most of them did not make it to varsity. So a lot of those try in some way to incorporate those who have been left behind by the system.
Luyanda.
Okay. Look, we need to address the question of the divisions into the higher education sector in terms of not taking serious the TVETs, taking serious the university part, and also even the university sector. There are some other universities that even today, when we call them, we say they are historically disadvantaged institutions of higher learning. So I think our government need to address those particular issues. But also, we need, when we're talking about unemployment, and also remember that there are those who are not educated, who are having their different skills, that which our government need to create a platform for them to find themselves participating actively into building our country.
I want to thank you very much for our panel for joining us this evening. Of course, Wits University SOC Nkateko Muloiwa, as well as Dalukolo Makabela, an unemployed BSc graduate. We wish you all the best. We hope that you find employment. We hope possibly your employer was watching this evening, as well as the Deputy President from SASCO, Luyanda Atenge. Thank you very much for your views, your very strong, opinionated views. We thank you very much for being a part of our June 16, 1976 commemoration day here at SABC on The Full View. Well, we thank you very much for tuning in to our discussion. We will continue our coverage of Youth Day celebrations when we come back at the top of the hour. We take a short break. You're watching The Full View.